So I went independent in mid-September. At the end of December, I'll make more on my own than I would have at my last job. And I had a great job. I had the best job I've ever had.
Being a solo founder in anything, if you're in PR, if you're in a startup, it's hard to kind of hold everything in your head, hold the whole burden. If someone asks you how things are going, you say they're going great. Why wouldn't you, right? But you're not going to say, oh, I just got off like the most annoying business development call, or I wish I could vent about someone, but...
When I think going independent, sometimes people call it like going solo. But as you said, Konrad, like you're not alone, you're working with people. So I'm wondering if you guys could speak to like, who are you working with?
I made my first fractional hire this month. The video editor. Video is very intensive, time consuming, and business development right now, I am handling all of that.
I'm wondering, what are the trade-offs you're facing now being independent?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's time. I think you ultimately realize that you're always going to be the bottleneck in every single aspect of your business.
One challenge we have, it's so hard to celebrate wins and kind of have ever like a start or stop point on projects. It's like every day is just a new battle, a new adventure. And so you ship something great and there's still 5 more things to do.
I think if you're, thinking about doing this as a reporter, if you are not like excited about the grind and the entrepreneurial aspect of it, and if all you really want is like more money or more creative freedom to keep doing the kind of job you were doing, this is not the path for you.
All JJ, thank you for that amazing introduction. As y'all know, independent journalism seems to be truly having a moment. It's wild to me that all my friends run their own media businesses now, are founders. You guys were already introduced, but what I'd love to kick us off with is you could give like the one-line pitch to what your media company is. Again, we only have so much time together, so give me your like quickest elevator pitch. Alex, if you want to start.
I'm a month and a half in, so I'm still workshopping this, but Sources is exclusive reporting on the AI race, and then I have a podcast called Axios, which is the tech industry's inside conversation. How's that? Just for elevator pitch.
Great.
All right, well, Macro Talk is a video-first platform focused on economic and business trends.
And Upstarts is the premier Alex-led Substack public. No, I'm kidding. Upstarts is a publication focused on the startup ecosystem from inception through IPO.
Alex, Heath, as you noted, you're really new to this, right? So what was your like, why now? What was really the impetus to starting Sources?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a long time, and everyone I know, we all have friends who have gone independent over the years, and no one I know regrets it. So I kept seeing those as data points as like, okay, everyone's having more success, doing more of what they want to do. So I'd been thinking about it for a long time, and then it was one of those things that was like, you think about it and then you just kind of do it really quickly all at once, and the impetus was this podcast that I'm doing with Vox Media and my co-host Ellis Hamburger. We lined up Mark Zuckerberg for our first episode, and that was like a date of like, okay, we're launching here. And luckily I was able to do that independently and still work with Vox. And so I left The Verge almost 2 months ago. And then Substack was able to work with me really quickly to help me launch, which was great.
Yeah, it seems like you had all the like puzzle pieces together, and Mark Zuckerberg is your first interview, no big deal. We've had obviously the pleasure of working together at Axios, so I assume you have no ill will to traditional media, but what I'm wondering is like, what are you able to do with Macro Talk that you perhaps couldn't do in your past jobs? And again, what excited you about going on your own?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's just awesome to be on the stage, and thank you all for having me, and Kerry, and we're all friends, and
we used to work together.
We all used to kind of work together. This is, it's a real privilege to be able to go out on your own. I think it's a reflection of the body of work that we've all been able to create over the past, decade plus. And so I think I just kind of want to start off by saying that there's no ill will. I see it as an ecosystem, right? We still need legacy media to produce a lot of the breaking news content. They have sources that we don't have, but also as journalists, we all have our own interests. And I think one of the things that really compelled me to go out on my own is I had a lot of interests that I couldn't really satisfy, inside of Axios, and especially when it comes to long form and video. And so because of technology, it's just been so much easier to build on my own because 10 years ago, we didn't have AI, we didn't have the networks that we do, the brain that we do. So yeah, it was also kind of like Alex, something I'd been thinking about for a long time.
Konrad, I wonder if you could go more into that in terms of what tools and partnerships when you started out, walk us through your starter pack. What did you gravitate to? What really was as Alex talked about, the puzzle that he was able to build that helped you really solidify your launch?
Well, pretty much my whole strategy was to get on TBPN on launch day. No. I did go on TBPN. I do think for startups like Upstarts, it's part of the launch stack now, but that's maybe a little different. I'd say, kind of like Alex, I met with the Substack team. I also met with the Beehive team. They made a very compelling offer, and I think it's great if there are multiple strong options out there for independent journalists. Ultimately, it was kind of the power of the community and that so many of my friends were on Substack, like Alex Kantrowitz, Eric Newcomer, who's here later, now Alex. Like, it just felt like I got to be aligned with a lot of my friends while still really owning the destiny of the company and what I'm trying to do from a reporting standpoint that made me choose Substack. And then you sort of just kind of string together other pieces from there. I had to teach myself Descript to start doing video editing. I'm working with an amazing fractional business person who will be announcing in the future, which will be exciting, which has been another touch point for folks. And so I think you kind of put together your allies and your pieces, and the key is to always maintain the center of gravity yourself.
Well, I love what you just shared there, because when I think going independent, sometimes people call it like going solo. But as you said, Konrad, you're not alone. You're working with people. So I'm wondering if you guys could speak to who are you working with? You don't need to name names, but as you've built teams independent, who is really supporting you? I guess, Alex, if you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, on the podcast, it's Vox, so they handle distribution, production, sales. So they're the exclusive partner for the pod, and they're great. And I've worked with them for 5 years before. So, and then Substack is more just me. I too have a sales partner that is being announced very soon. I guess I'm not at liberty to say right now, but
don't scoop your own partner.
Yeah.
Call me later, Alex.
We both got a guy. I'll find me after. I'll connect you. But that is the piece of this that I think is being built right now, which is really exciting, is that the subscription piece is there. So it's easy to build that, but I think we all probably feel like that's not in and of itself enough to support what we want to do. And I think ads are a key component. And right now it feels like the momentum is moving towards brands realizing that they can reach really hard to reach audiences, which are increasingly, people like us, like our audiences. And that infrastructure is being built out right now in the same way that subscriptions were being built out 10 years ago, and that's really exciting.
So you guys talked about the power of having a sales team and having the distribution network, but what about editors and people to bounce ideas off of?
ChatGPT. I'm kind of kidding, but do you guys use it?
Yeah, I use it all the time. I use it to double check grammar, little things. Anytime that you see a social media post, I run it through ChatGPT just to make sure I sound coherent and I didn't miss anything. But yeah, to your question about adding to the team, I made my first fractional hire this month. The video editor. Video is very intensive, time-consuming, and business development right now, I am handling all of that. And so I've been really lucky that my network's actually reached out to me. I've had very little outbound. It's all been sort of inbound. I had an amazing launch sponsor this past year. We're renewing for next year. So, I'm trying to make this a sustainable business. I know it's one of your questions. And having worked for 3 previous media startups, know what my limits are. And so I'm trying not to hit that, in the next couple of months. I want to make this a long-term project.
I will say it can be a lonely job for sure. I think being a solo founder in anything, if you're in PR, if you're in a startup, in anything, it's hard to kind of hold everything in your head, hold the whole burden. If someone asks you how things are going, you say they're going great. Why wouldn't you, right? But you're not going to say, oh, I just got off the most annoying business development call, or I wish I could vent about someone, but my dog doesn't seem to be super receptive. My dog has heard a lot of venting. She's our social media manager at Upstarts. Give her a shout out. But I would say that's where trying to find friends, trying to find these alliances can be really helpful. In a way, for traditional media folks here, I call it trad media, sorry. But I think for folks like that, there might be an irony that it's almost like we're reinventing the same stack a little bit, where you need the editor, you need the colleagues, whatever. I say the fundamental difference is ownership. I think all of us here want to own our own labor, own our own destiny, build a new brand that we really control. And then I think finding collabs and ways to partner is great. Upstarts, we want to publish a cover story-like feature about a very kind of reclusive, exciting person in tech over Thanksgiving week. I'll probably need part-time assistants across the board on that story, but I own the story. And I think that's just a fundamental difference, even as we need some of the same blocking and tackling we did at our old jobs.
Yeah, we're rebuilding a lot of it, but with much better cost structures. We know people that run these legacy newsrooms. it's much better to go like, oh, the work I directly put in directly gets me X dollars out. So it's also like owning your upside, which is huge. And yeah, I just so agree with that, like finding alliances. And even though we compete on stories, I have found that, especially in like the tech reporting world, everyone is friendly and generally supportive. And like a lot of the, big independent tech writers were very helpful for me in launching and giving me advice. And Alex gave me advice. Yeah, it's a very welcoming community, even though we're all kind of competing.
I'd love if you could go a little bit deeper into that cost structure. I know you can't tell me how much you guys are making unless you want to, but in terms of how
I'll make more in this. So I went independent in mid-September.
Yeah.
At the end of December, I'll make more on my own than I would have at my last job.
And
I had a great job. I had like the best job I've ever had.
It's amazing to hear. What's driving that? You'd say, so I know you both talked about hiring someone to help with, like, I guess ads, right? But you also have subscription revenue. And the podcast is that's a great business. All the ad dollars in podcasting are amazing, and they're relatively metrics insensitive right now, which is also great for a new podcast. So yeah, that's great. It's a combo of those things. It's like I want to build eventually events, but right now subscriptions and ads on the newsletter and podcasting. That's like the pie right now. Oh, but yeah, what about you with your revenue mix? Like, what's really driving your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's having a great brand partner who understands the stories that I want to tell and be able to have more of those. And every day, somebody asked me this week, what does your day-to-day look like? I would say 30% is business development, 30% is editorial, 30% is actually like video editing. And then I don't even know what I do with the rest of that time, but that's really right now as a solo operator, and I'm not like Alex here on Substack. I think that was a decision I made looking at what I felt was really missing in the business news landscape, and that really was having these long-form conversations with business executives about their day-to-day decision-making and connecting the dots. And so I am thinking about a newsletter strategy, but I think right now it's just focused on getting the video product really in a really good place.
And I think for me, it's like the flywheel that makes it all happen is still the newsletter, because I am a writer. I mean, I spent 12 years writing cover stories at Forbes, and some of my Forbes colleagues will be here today, and like they're great people, and I learned a ton. So I want to bring that quality to Upstarts, and so if anyone here hasn't subscribed to all of us, please do. It does really help us a lot to be able to do this, even a free subscription. But from the get-go with Upstarts, I thought we needed to have multiple revenue streams. I didn't want to be beholden to one thing. We all remember the pivot to video and some of the horrible kind of like seismic shifts that happen in big media. And so I think resilience and like never having to retreat are important values for Upstarts. And so from day one, we have free subscribers where we have sponsors like, unicorns like Brex, Notion, Vanta, who can help maybe power a free newsletter for everyone. We do have paid subscribers who are really great, and my highest tier actually are in a private WhatsApp group where they can just annoy me every day, direct access. It's a lot of fun, actually. I recommend it. And then lastly, I've already done a lot of partnered events. I'll work with mission-aligned brands to co-host things or experiment there. And I find weirdly that reporters are better salespeople than I probably guessed. It's not that scary. I was always like, this is a horrifying job. And then B, I think like the ecosystem embraces us making money and building our businesses as long as we do it transparently. It's not as icky as I might have feared to do a brand partnership. Like, these are fun brands that want to work with us. It's all good.
There's so many adjacent brands to what we cover that like I'm probably not going to speak on stage at like a Google event, but I'll happily take a fintech company's money because I don't really cover fintech that much, but it's adjacent to, they really want to reach my audience. It's adjacent to the AI world and everything I'm covering. So yeah, I totally agree. And it's exciting now that it feels like brands are really waking up to the independent space.
So clearly you guys have talked about all the success you've had, whether it's like having the ownership, having that brand success, and keeping the editorial integrity. But I'm wondering, what are the trade-offs you're facing now being independent? And I guess, though, to spin it positive, like how are you overcoming those trade-offs right now? I just hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's time. I think you ultimately realize that you're always going to be the bottleneck in every single aspect of your business, whether it is trying to report or to go out and do events. I mean, I'm still doing events with Axios, and so I have sort of the best of both worlds where I get to be sort of still with legacy media, but still on my own. But events also are a zero-sum game. I'm on the road. I can't do anything else, and so I have to limit that. Even with my brand partners who want me to do events, I have to really look at my schedule and say, if I'm doing this today, then I can't put a podcast out this week. And so I think really juggling the priorities as a solo operator has been probably the biggest challenge.
Here, here. I mean, just a month and a half in, it's like it's a deluge of like partnership. It's great. They're great discussions, but it's like I've had 4 editor-in-chiefs reach out with the same concept pitch, which is like, plug into our infrastructure, we'll help you with events, we'll maybe help you sell ads, we'll syndicate you. So it's a lot of those kind of discussions that I didn't foresee having so quickly, because I think a lot of people in the trad space are realizing that they want to align with people who are going independent, and a lot of their top people are going independent, and they know that's going to keep happening. And so, yeah, the partnerships discussions have been really interesting, not at all what I expected so quickly.
I think the best person to answer this question would be my wife, Natalie, who's hiding in the back right now. Send her deals. But I think one challenge we have is just, it's so hard to celebrate wins and kind of have ever like a start or stop point on projects. It's like every day is just a new battle, a new adventure. And so you ship something great, and there's still 5 more things to do. I think when you're part of a big newsroom, I was kind of a big game hunter where I would do like a huge project for Forbes and then kind of recover for a week or 2. There's no recovery time now. It's like you're always sprinting and you're part of that marathon race. So that's been a real challenge for me, is to like give myself the space to feel good about what we've achieved, but also just constantly re-gear up for like, okay, it's the weekend, but there's more work to do. Like you're in founder mode. Weekends are not a thing anymore,
Yeah, I think if you're, thinking about doing this as a reporter, if you are not like excited about the grind and the entrepreneurial aspect of it, and if all you really want is like more money or more creative freedom to keep doing the kind of job you were doing, this is not the path for you. You have to want to like build a company and think through all the different parts of it, and it's rewarding, but it's also, like everyone's been saying, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who has covered business for so long as a reporter, like we know the founder's journey. Like we know what it takes to build those businesses. So I think we all probably walked into this with eyes wide open, knowing what it would take, and that's definitely something I would encourage a lot of other journalists and anybody in here thinking about doing anything on their own, just really reflecting on the actual work that it takes and whether or not you want to do that work every single day.
It's funny because there is more empathy. Like when I'm now talking to founders and they're like, can you do Saturday at 10 p.m.? And I'm like, yeah, whatever, like, sure. And they're like, whoa, really? And it's like, yeah, like we all are working, we're all building businesses, like it's all the same. And I literally had someone say to me, like the most backhanded, they were like, I didn't know reporters could work this hard. I was like, well, we are founders now too, so we really empathize.
Yeah, founder mode heard. One thing that also I'm interested by with all 3 of your companies is that you didn't like name it after yourself. You all have these like specific names. Why that path? Was that on purpose? Like, is that just the cool thing to do? Like,
it sounded cool. No, I mean, I do think eventually, if this is super successful, I'll have a team. I think there's an opportunity to rebuild a tech publication for the future that rewards people in an interesting way, that gives them upside in their work in a way that they don't get in a legacy newsroom, and that lets them be their own brand, really. And there's a lot of like media companies that get started and claim that, but I actually think I could do that. And I'm thinking about it as like it's years out, but like that was part of it. Is you don't want it to just be. You want to have that optionality. Is how I felt about it.
Is that the same for you?
Yeah, it was intentional. I think there's a lot of power behind all of our names, of course, but I think ultimately we all had this big vision, and so I think we all, if I were to guess, we're going to probably have franchises inside of, so the brand itself is really important to establish what the content sort of is, but, I still want to preserve my own identity because I might want to do other projects, and so, I didn't want to name it just, let's say, Hope King's newsletter, right, or this video platform. And something that you and I talked about when you were at my launch party was the way that Barbie actually really pushed me into this direction, and it was really when I realized that Mattel back in 2023, the CEO said on an earnings call that they were going to double down on their IP. And that really, as a business reporter, thinking about my own life in a meta way, I realized like I might not be blonde and plastic, but like I have my own brand, and how do I monetize my own IP? And that's to your point about ownership. And so really on that path, right, because of the story that I was covering as a journalist, really I think put that idea into my head and just made me realize, influencers are also doing this. and we can do the same thing.
I do think there will be a challenge. I'm excited to take this on. I see my friends who are speaking later, Emily Sundberg and Eric Newcomer, going through this, where they want to build up new reporters and expand their brands, even though they're so intertwined with Feed Me and Newcomer. And Eric is obviously kind of named, it after himself. And for me, that was never an option because there are too many Alexes with Substacks, so that was good.
Yeah.
As I was prescient, right? Yeah. But I think the reality is, I want to find ways that I can grow people without feeling like I'm taking from their IP or their optionality just to build Upstarts. I want it to be symbiotic. I also think, though, with Upstarts, part of why I didn't name it after me is because I want it to feel like a real community. It's not just supporting Alex's work. It's like I want anyone who engages with Upstarts to feel like they're an Upstart too. And so there was that inclusivity.
Okay, last question because we're almost at time. I know you said one of the best things the audience can do is subscribe. What is one story that you think is the first thing they should do to read to really understand what you're about? Alex, if you want to start.
I had a pretty big scoop last week. YouTube did a huge reorg and did layoffs and talked about their new AI strategy and put the full memo in the story. That got a lot of pickup. You could check that out. That's like the last one.
So I have 2 strategies for video. I have a deep dive series where I look into a topic very closely, and the first one was on the workforce reckoning. So looking at every single part of the labor force and the issues that we're facing. And right now I'm working on a bunch of stories and videos and interviews around the K-shaped economy and how businesses are changing because of it, how consumers are having to adapt in this new environment. So check those out.
I'll have a story tomorrow. You guys should all subscribe to read, but in the meantime, recently I wrote about a pivot by a company called Handshake, a tech unicorn that got a ton of buzz back when I was at Forbes and in the past, that basically realized they were trapped in 10% growth as a unicorn. They were never going to go public, so they've rebet the whole company on AI, made some really tough decisions there, and the CEO, because of my experience and our trust, brought the exclusive whole inside look at that turnaround to Upstarts, and so that would be a fun one to start with.
Great. Well, I'm excited to read and consume all those. And like we talked about, please subscribe to all of these amazing founders. Thank you, Alex, Hope, and Alex, for a great conversation.
Thank you.